Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into a really fascinating question. If you were going to sit down and write the ultimate, most accurate biography of Prophet Muhammad, where exactly would you look? Well, author Ali Mohammed Al-Shurafa makes a pretty bold argument. He says you actually don't need to sift through mountains of historical texts. You literally just need the Quran.
And that brings us right to the central question we're looking at today. How exactly did the Quran introduce the Prophet to the world? It's a massive shift in perspective, right? It kind of challenges us to set aside centuries of secondary commentary and just look straight at the original source code.
To unpack all this, we're going to break down the author's argument into 6 key areas. We'll look at the Quranic approach to biography, the core attributes of mercy and justice, the reality of divine assignment, freedom of belief, a universal message for all, and finally returning to the pure source. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Part 1, the Quranic approach to biography.
So Al-Shurafa argues that you can basically think of the Quran as the ultimate blueprint and the Prophet as the building itself. Basically, he was the practical, walking embodiment of the text. His highest attributes and behaviors, they weren't just, personal quirks. They were actively and flawlessly molded by specific verses in how he dealt with people every single day.
Moving right along to Part 2, attributes of mercy and justice. What's really fascinating here is the specificity of it all. As you can see, the author identifies the Prophet's interactions as boiling down to 4 absolute foundation stones: mercy, justice, benevolence, and respect for human rights. According to the article, these weren't just occasional acts he did when it was convenient, they were literally his default operating system.
And Al-Shurafa points out that the proof is right there in the text. Take Surah Al-Tawbah, verse 128. There has certainly come to you a messenger from among yourselves. Grievous to him is what you suffer, he is concerned over you, and to the believers is kind and merciful. Think about the absolute best leaders today. They're almost always defined by empathy, right? Well, the author uses this verse to show a leader who actively carried the burdens of his people, someone who was deeply, personally distressed by their suffering.
That takes us to Section 3, the reality of divine assignment. The article draws a really strict line here regarding what the mission actually entailed. Notice the stark contrast on the screen. On the left side, you have the actual mission. He was a bearer of glad tidings, a warner, a teacher, a guide. But look at the right side. The author is adamant that the divine assignment absolutely forbade him from being a dictator, a controller of minds, or any kind of coercive force.
And to back this up, he references Surah Al-Najj. Your companion has not strayed, nor has he erred, nor does he speak from his own inclination. It is not but a revelation revealed. Al-Shurafa analyzes this as a sort of divine testimony. Because the Prophet isn't speaking from personal inclination, his teachings are purely objective revelation. So the message was totally untainted by personal worldly desires or some human thirst for power. He was purely a vessel.
The boundaries are laid out even more definitively in Surah Al-Ghashiyah, so remind, O Muhammad. You are only a reminder. You are not over them a dictator. That's a really crucial piece of textual evidence for the author. It explicitly restricts the role to delivery and reminder, actively stripping away any mandate for absolute domineering control over people's lives.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, freedom of belief and rejecting coercion.
Here we look at one of the most famous verses in the Quran, from Surah Al-Baqarah. There shall be no compulsion in acceptance of the religion. The right course has become clear from the wrong. The author relies heavily on this verse to completely sever any potential link between the message of Islam and the concept of coercion. It establishes freedom of choice as an absolute, non-negotiable core tenet.
The logic here is pretty straightforward when you think about it. If the instruction was to rely on wisdom and good instruction, then true faith fundamentally has to be a free decision. It has to come from inner conviction. If you're using force, oppression, or dictatorial enforcement, well, according to the author, you're violating the very blueprint of the source text. True belief simply has to honor human dignity.
All right, Part 5, universal message for all.
Now, this part really expands the scope. Take a look at Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 177, and we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the worlds. Notice that specific phrasing there, to the worlds. It's not restricted to a single tribe, it's not just for a single nation, or even just for believers. Al-Shura points out that this single phrase mandates a framework of mercy that inherently transcends all human discrimination.
So how did that actually look in practice? According to the text, it meant repelling evil with good, offering forgiveness, and choosing to walk away from ignorance to build harmony.
The author highlights that this mandated moral framework was the exact methodology used to turn bitter enemies into close allies. It's a practical, incredibly relevant tool for resolving conflict, even for us today.
And finally, Section 6, returning to the pure source.
So what is the ultimate takeaway from all of this? The author lays out a clear three-step path forward. Step 1. Bypass centuries of external baggage and return directly to the pure Quranic text. Step 2. Extract and understand its true, uncontaminated message of mercy. And Step 3. Use that framework to build a just, peaceful, and solidary human society. As Al-Shurafa sees it, this isn't about regressing to the past at all. It's actually a forward-looking formula for a thriving future.
And that leaves us with a genuinely profound thought to wrap up on. Based on this entire thesis, we really have to ask, will humanity return to this original text to rediscover a universal blueprint for justice, human dignity, and lasting peace? It's a question that challenges us to look past the noise and critically examine the source material for ourselves. Whether you're deeply familiar with the text or you're just exploring these concepts for the first time, it definitely sparks a curiosity to read the source with fresh eyes. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning, keep learning.
مؤسسة رسالة السلام العالمية، رسالة إنسانية لعالم أكثر سلاماً.